For decades, inside the polished boardrooms of Nagoya, Toyota lived by one unshakable rule: build everything yourselves. Yet today, gliding through the neon-lit streets of Beijing, a sleek Toyota sedan carries a secret under its chassis, a beating heart stamped with the logo of its fiercest rival, BYD. To the outside world, this looks like the ultimate humiliation, proof that the king of hybrid power has finally been dethroned by Chinese engineering. But look past the headlines, and the reality is far more calculated. This isn't a white flag of surrender. This is a masterclass in strategic survival, borrowing your enemy's sharpest blade to stay alive on their home turf, while quietly forging a nuclear option in the background. Why did the world's most self-reliant automaker swallow its pride? Is BYD's Blade Battery truly as indestructible as they claim? And what is Toyota's real endgame once the dust settles? Before we dive into the analysis, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos on the global auto market. Now, let's step back and look at why the world's most cautious automaker was forced to make this unprecedented move. China's EV pressure. For decades, Toyota built its empire on total control. The Toyota production system turned supply chains into a science, and the Prius made Toyota synonymous with hybrid dominance. Full electric vehicles were treated with open skepticism. Toyota bet on hybrids and hydrogen instead, convinced the world wasn't ready to go all in on batteries. Then, China stopped waiting. New energy vehicles, the official term covering EVs and plug-in hybrids, officially crossed 50% of total new car sales in China. Combustion engines and traditional hybrids started losing ground fast. Toyota and Volkswagen watched their gas and hybrid sales drop 15 to 20% in just 12 to 18 months. That's not a slow decline. That's a market flipping underneath your feet in the span of a single product cycle. For Toyota, the message was blunt: adapt immediately or get pushed out of the world's most important car market entirely. This is the part that makes the story genuinely fascinating. Toyota isn't some struggling latecomer scrambling to catch up out of panic. This is the company that literally wrote the modern manual on manufacturing discipline. The company every other automaker studied and copied for decades. And yet, even Toyota's playbook had no answer for how fast China's EV market was moving. That's not a small admission. It's a signal that the entire industry's rules had changed underneath everyone's feet, Toyota included. The battery cost and time trap. Here's the part most headlines skip. In an electric vehicle, the battery isn't just a component, it's the single most expensive part of the car, often 30 to 40% of total production cost. Get that number wrong, and your margins disappear before you sell a single unit. So Toyota faced a brutal choice: build its own battery supply chain from the ground up or buy in. Building meant billions in capital, years spent locking down lithium, nickel, and cobalt supply, and a manufacturing learning curve measured in years, not months. None of that happens overnight, and none of it happens cheaply. Toyota didn't have years. Every quarter spent building its own battery ecosystem from scratch was another quarter of losing ground in China, watching local competitors ship new EVs while Toyota was still securing raw materials. Time, not money, was the real constraint, and time was the one thing Toyota couldn't manufacture. Think about it from Toyota's position. You can throw unlimited capital at a gigafactory, but you cannot compress the years it takes to stabilize production quality, negotiate raw material contracts, and train a workforce to build battery cells at scale. Meanwhile, the market you're trying to serve is moving in months, not years. That mismatch is exactly what pushed Toyota toward a partner who had already solved the problem. Inside BYD's Blade Battery.
To understand why Toyota turned to BYD specifically, you have to understand what BYD actually is. It didn't start as a car company. BYD began in 1995 making batteries for mobile phones and only later expanded into automobiles. That origin matters because it means BYD controls its battery production in-house from raw cell to finished pack. That vertical integration gives it something almost no rival can match: tight cost control and the ability to iterate fast without waiting on outside suppliers. Now, the chemistry. Most premium EVs lean on NMC batteries, nickel, manganese, cobalt, which pack in more energy density but come at a price. They're expensive and they carry a real risk of thermal runaway. BYD went a different direction with LFP, lithium iron phosphate. Cheaper raw materials, far more stable chemistry, a longer usable lifespan measured in thousands of charge cycles, and no dependence on scarce, expensive metals. Then there's the design that gives the battery its name. Instead of stacking bulky modules with wasted space between them, BYD uses cell-to-pack technology, arranging long, thin cells like blades directly inside the pack, skipping the intermediate module stage entirely. That structural trick boosts volumetric energy density by roughly 50% compared to traditional LFP packs, while cutting bulk and improving overall efficiency. Put those two advantages together, cheaper chemistry and a smarter structural layout, and the numbers speak for themselves. The Blade battery holds up for more than 3,000 charge cycles, equivalent to over 1.2 million kilometers of driving before meaningful degradation. And because it skips nickel and cobalt entirely, it costs roughly 20 to 30% less to produce than an NMC pack of the same capacity. For a company like Toyota, obsessed with cost discipline and safety in equal measure, that combination isn't just attractive, it's close to unbeatable.
The nail penetration test. If you want to see why this battery earned Toyota's trust, watch the nail penetration test. It's the industry's most brutal stress test. A nail driven straight through a charged battery cell. A standard NMC battery, punctured the same way, spikes past 500 degrees Celsius almost instantly and erupts into violent flame. BYD's Blade Battery, under that exact same test, holds a stable surface temperature between just 30 and 60 degrees Celsius. No smoke, no explosion, nothing. For Toyota, that single result matters more than any performance spec sheet ever could. Toyota's entire brand is built on one word: reliability. A battery that survives being physically punctured without turning into a fire hazard isn't just impressive engineering, it's the one thing that lets Toyota put its badge on the car without flinching. And because LFP is inherently cheap to produce, it also lets Toyota compete on price in a market currently locked in a brutal price war. Case study: Toyota BZ3. This alliance isn't a handshake deal born out of desperation. It goes back to 2019 when Toyota and BYD formed BYD Toyota EV Technology Company Limited, a 50-50 joint venture built for shared research and development. The division of labor is straightforward. BYD brings the EV platform, the Blade battery, the electric motors, and the software integration. Toyota brings vehicle engineering, suspension tuning, its own quality control standards, and, critically, decades of brand trust. The clearest proof of concept is the Toyota BZ3 sedan, built specifically for the Chinese market. Strip it down and you'll find BYD's battery and motor underneath Toyota's body styling and safety engineering. The pricing alone tells the story. It starts at roughly 169,800 yuan, around 24,000 US dollars, an aggressive number for a Toyota badged EV. Buyers get a choice of a 49.9 or 65.3 kilowatt-hour blade pack, delivering somewhere between 517 and 616 kilometers of range on China's CLTC test cycle, with fast charging from 30 to 80% in just 27 minutes. What makes the BZ3 significant isn't just that it exists, it's what it proves. Toyota didn't have to spend years reinventing an EV platform from the ground up. It took a proven battery and motor system already validated on Chinese roads, wrapped it in the engineering rigor and quality control Toyota is known for, and shipped a competitive product in a fraction of the usual development time. That's Toyota adapting to Chinese market speed without abandoning the standards its badge is built on.
Coopetition and strategy. This is where the auto industry's old rulebook stops applying. Toyota and BYD are direct competitors, fighting over the same customers, yet here they are, co-developing technology together. Call it coopetition, rivals cooperating because pure rivalry is no longer survivable on its own. Staying in strict silos, refusing to work with the enemy on principle, is a luxury none of them can afford anymore. And this deal isn't charity from BYD's side either. Partnering with Toyota validates BYD as a genuine Tier 1 global technology supplier, not just a domestic Chinese car maker, but a company serious global automakers are willing to build with. That kind of validation is worth more to BYD's global ambitions than almost any marketing campaign could buy. It also lets BYD monetize its battery production capacity by selling to outside OEM clients, turning spare manufacturing capacity into another revenue stream instead of letting it sit idle. So when you strip away the surface-level headlines, this isn't a story of one company bailing out another. It's two companies with very different strengths, one dominant in battery technology, the other dominant in brand trust and engineering discipline, recognizing that combining those strengths gets both of them further, faster than fighting each other in isolation ever could.
Buying time for solid state. So does this mean Toyota has quietly given up on being an engineering leader? That's the question skeptics keep asking online, and honestly, it's a fair one to raise. But the more accurate read is pragmatism over pride. Sacrificing a slice of self-sufficiency in the short term is a small price to pay for staying relevant in the world's most competitive car market. Because here's what's happening behind the scenes while the BZ3 rolls off the line. Toyota is pouring resources into next-generation solid-state battery technology, targeting a commercial launch between 2027 and 2028. The target specs are staggering, a driving range beyond 1,000 kilometers with fast charging that adds most of that range back in just 10 minutes. Solid-state batteries promise faster charging, longer range, and even greater safety margins than today's best lithium chemistries, and Toyota has spent years quietly positioning itself as one of the leaders in that race. The strategy is layered, and once you see it, it's hard to unsee. Use BYD's proven technology to survive the immediate EV wave in China right now without burning years chasing a battery supply chain from zero. Meanwhile, keep the cash flowing in from a global hybrid business that BYD and most Chinese rivals simply don't have. Toyota sells more than 3.4 million hybrid vehicles worldwide every single year, generating billions of dollars in net cash flow that funds this exact R&D without ever putting the company at financial risk. Then funnel that money into the technological leap that could put Toyota back in front of the entire industry once solid-state batteries are ready for mass production. This isn't Toyota admitting defeat, it's Toyota buying itself the runway to win later on its own terms instead of being forced to fight today's battle with tomorrow's unfinished technology.
Supply chain flexibility. Step back, and the picture becomes clear. Toyota's partnership with BYD wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a necessary pragmatic pivot made by a company willing to do whatever it takes to stay in the game.
It shows just how far BYD has evolved from a phone battery maker into a genuine global power player in energy technology. And it shows a side of Toyota the public rarely sees: ruthless agility when its commercial survival is actually on the line. The bigger lesson here goes beyond these two companies. In this industry now, supply chain flexibility has quietly replaced absolute self-sufficiency as the real competitive edge. The automakers clinging to the old idea that everything must be built in-house are the ones most likely to get left behind, while the ones willing to borrow, partner, and adapt are the ones still standing when the dust settles. Adaptability wins. In the brutal transition to electric mobility, the automotive throne doesn't go to the company that insists on building every single part alone out of pride. It goes to the one smart enough to use every weapon available to it, even when that weapon comes from its biggest rival. Pride doesn't win market share. Adaptability does. If this breakdown brought you value, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss our upcoming video on how BYD transformed from an obscure battery startup into the powerhouse automotive giants now beg to partner with. So here's the final question worth sitting with. Is this the smartest move Toyota has made in a decade, or is it the first crack in an empire that once refused to depend on anyone? Drop your take in the comments below. I want to hear which side you're on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.